Hi, I'm Jo from J.H.Leather, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create this vertical bifold wallet. Now the patterns for this are available as both a PDF pattern pack download and an acrylic template set, and it is also available as a DIY leathercraft kit. Now links for all three of these are in the description. Let's get started. Okay, so once you have your patterns, we can get our leather. Now I'm using a combination of leather here because I do like to combine textures and colours, and links for the leather are in the description. Once you have your leather selected, we can draw around each of our patterns, and you're going to need two of the T-slots, the card backing and the front pocket. We can then get to cut things out. So I cut all my straight edges first with a rotary knife and a safety ruler. And then on the T-slots, I'm just going to use my head knife to cut out that T section. And now you should have all your pieces looking a bit like this. And what we're going to do is some edging. So on our outer wallet, our front pocket and our T-slot. Starting with the outer wallet, what we're going to do, if we haven't already, is mark on our stitching guidelines. And we're just going to use the marker on the patterns for that. And then I'm going to use my silver pen because I find it easier to see on this textured leather. And then what we can do is edge all around that nice grain side. On the opposite edge from where we've put our stitch line, we're going to flip that over and then edge on the flesh side on what will be the opening edge of the wallet. We can then use our pattern and mark in where the stitching is going to finish. And then what we can do is edge in between that point because there isn't going to be any stitching here. Now on the T-slots, this is nice and easy. We're just going to go across that top opening edge on both the grain and flesh sides. And it is the same situation with our front pocket. What I'm going to do, just to make sure I get this the right way around, is check that first with my template and then do my edging. Once we've done that, we can do some edge finishing. So this is a dyed through leather, so I'm just going to use some burnishing gum along the edges to bring out the natural colour within the leather. And I'm going to do that on the pieces that I have done my edging on only. Once I've got that edge burnishing gum rubbed in, I'm going to heat my creaser up and then crease along these burnished edges. And we can now start to work on our T-slot. So we're going to set our dividers to the mark on the pattern and then draw that across the bottom on the grain side and on the three edges marked on the pattern on the flesh side. Now on the front of our T-slot, this is going to be the stitch line. I'm just going to stitch mark that now before we do our skiving. What we can do is then do our skiving. So the lines on the back are the minimum amount that we need to skive sort of in from the edge. So across the bottom, I will generally do a bit more than that and have that skived down to nothing. However, if you're new to leatherwork, the 5mm mark is absolutely fine to skive down to. Once I have skived across the bottom down to nothing, I can then work on the size of the T-slot, again skiving those down to nothing. And the reason we're going to do this is because it's going to reduce the bulk in the wallet once we have made it up. Now we have our T-slots ready, what we can do is start to assemble them onto our pocket backing. So first I'm going to transfer the marks at the bottom for where the bottom of the T-slot are going to sit, and I can also transfer the marks on the side of my pattern here for where the pockets are going to sit, and it's just going to help me align things up when we glue everything together. Now, depending on what leather you're using, you can rough the edges up here. Now, for me on this textured leather, it's not too bad. If you're using a smooth leather, then this is a good step to do, as it will help your glue to stick better. What we can then do is, with our chosen glue, glue on the pocket backing and on the T-slot and get them ready to stick together. Once the glue has gone tacky, you can then stick that in using your marks as a guide to make sure you get that T-slot in nice and straight. And then if you want to, you can once more go over your T-slot with your stitch marker, stitch marking all the way through. Now what we're going to do is stitch that T-slot in. So we are not actually going to be seeing this stitching once it has been all assembled. So I'm actually going to do every other stitch mark and stitch sort of with longer stitches. Now you don't have to do that if you don't want to, or if you have a longer stitch marker, you're not going to need to do this step. And I'm going to finish this line of stitching with 1.5 back stitches. And then what I can do is trim my threads off, and using a lighter or a thread zapper, melt the ends of my threads, as these are a polyester thread. Now if you're using linen, you're not going to want to burn them. You're going to want to use a little bit of glue and just dab that on the ends of your thread. Once we've done that, we can now add some more glue around our pocket. As well as on the back of the front pocket. And then I'm going to use a heat gun to help speed up getting the glue nice and tacky. And then I can stick on my front pocket. Now what I'm going to do is transfer some stitching marks, and we want to do this as a pair. So we're going to transfer the stitching marks that are going to go down the inside edge of the wallet as well as along the top. And like I said, we want a pair. So what we can do is flip our pattern over to ensure that they are a pair. I'm then going to use my silver pen just to mark in the dots a bit more clearly so I can see them better for when I'm doing my stitch marking. And I can use a ruler and draw a line in, or alternatively you can also use some dividers. Once you have your line marked in, we can follow that with our chosen stitch marker. And I want one tooth over the top edge of that top T-slot to keep that nice and secure once we stitch it. And again, you can stitch mark this all the way through. Once we have done that, we are now ready to stitch, and we are going to start with 2 back stitches and finish with 1.5 back stitches. Now, if you are new to leatherwork and hand stitching leather, I have a whole video dedicated on hand stitching, as well as some video guides helping you out to get better stitching and avoid common stitching mistakes, which I will link in the description of this video. And once we have finished doing our stitching, what we can do is, using a hammer, tap our stitches flat, and then using our pattern we can draw on our trim line on that inner edge along where we have just stitched. And once you have marked that in, you can then trim along that line. And then what we're going to do is edge along here on both the grain and flesh sides. And then we're going to apply some burnishing gum, or if you are using stain or edge paint, you can apply that now as well, and just polish that edge. And then I'm going to follow that with my heated crease to get a nice crease line along here. Now we are ready to assemble our inner wallet. So what we're going to do is mark on where these two pockets are going to sit using our template and the guides marked on there. And then we can apply some glue around to the inner wallet as well as on the back of both of our card pockets that have been assembled. And then once everything has gone nice and tacky, we can stick our pockets into the inner part of our wallet, making sure everything is nice and flush and in line with the maker's marks that we put on earlier. We can then grab our dividers and draw in the stitch line along the top of our pocket. Now, if you have missed this step where we draw on the maker's marks earlier, you can draw those on now and then follow them with your dividers. Or alternatively, you can use a ruler and a silver pen. Once we have that line marked in, what we're going to do is our stitch marking. So with one tooth over the edge on the inside of the wallet, we can stitch mark along that line, and you can stitch mark all the way through if you like. Once we've done that, we can now stitch, once again starting with 2 back stitches and finishing with 1.5 back stitches so that both ends of this stitch line match. Once we've done our stitching, we can once again tap the stitches with a hammer, and then what we're going to do is some trimming. Now I'm using the pocket pattern for this. However, this step would have been much easier for me if I used the inner wallet guide and marked on the trim line from there. So once we have marked on our trim lines, we are going to trim all the way around the inner wallet so it's down to the size we need to stick to our outer wallet. And once you've done your trimming, you can go around the whole of the inside of your wallet with your chosen edge tool. And then on the flesh sides, what we're going to do is we're going to go and edge all the way across the top edge where we have just stitched our pockets in. And then on the bottom edge on the flesh side, we are just going to edge in between the 2 pockets because there isn't going to be any stitching here. What I'm going to do now is do some finishing touches to that top edge of the wallet, applying my burnishing gum and polishing that in, as well as adding a nice crease line here. We are now going to mark on our stitch line for our outer wallet, so you can use your patterns to set your dividers to the stitching width and then mark that on to your wallet. Once we have done that, we are then going to follow that line with our chosen stitch marker. And then we can start to glue. Now we don't have a trim line on this outer wallet, so we need to be a bit more careful with how much glue we're putting on here and don't come in too far from the edges. And we're going to glue around where we have just stitch marked. And then we can add some glue to the inner wallet. And once that has gone tacky, we can stick the 2 together. Now we want to make sure our edges are nice and as flush as possible so we get the best finish on them later. So we're going to stick one side in first, and I've got mine, so I'm sticking my outer wallet onto the inner wallet rather than the other way around, because I find this a bit easier. Once we've got one side in and we're happy that it's nice and flush, we can then stick the other side into the wallet. And then what I'm going to do, just to help me a bit more here with this textured leather, is actually go over my stitch marks once again. Now, I'm not going to be stitch marking this all the way through because I'm going to be using an awl. However, you can do if that is the way you like to work. Once I have done that, what I'm going to do is do my stitching. So I'm going to start with 2 back stitches on this wallet, and then have 1 stitch over that top edge to make sure my leather stays nice together. So what I'm going to do is just swap my hands with the thread as I do that top stitch to get that looped over the top. Now, if you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. I just like to have this on my wallet to make sure the tops of my leathers stay nice and tight together and they don't splay over time. Once you've done your stitch over the top, you can complete your back stitches and then finish stitching this wallet as normal, making sure you finish with at least 1.5 back stitches. Now we've finished our stitching, we can do some finishing touches. So first of all, we're going to use our hammer and tap our stitches nice and flat. And then to ensure our edges are as nice and flush as possible, what I'm going to do is use some sandpaper and get the edges even more flush. Once I have done that, what I'm going to do is just nick the corners ever so slightly on the outer corners of this wallet so that they don't get bashed around. And then what I'm going to do is just edge these on both the inside and outside of the wallet. And then we can apply our finishing. So for me, that is just another layer of burnishing gum to add and rub in to the leather. And then what I'm going to do is go over everything with a hot crease to bring that crease line out and make it nice and prominent. Now, you don't have to do a crease line if you don't want to. This is just something that I like to do in my projects. The final step of this make is to ensure there is no excess glue getting in the way of our pockets. So using a bone folder, we're going to stick that into each of the pockets, working it into the corner to remove any excess glue that there might be in this wallet. So that is it. You should now have your vertical bifold wallet looking a little bit like this one. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, please do give it a thumbs up to let YouTube know and to help get this video out to more leather crafters. And if you enjoyed watching this one, you may also enjoy this video.